जल जीवन हरियाली के तहत वर्षा जल संचय।
Well, good morning to all the teachers present here. Today I would like to take up a topic on the method of teaching. In this method of teaching, psychological principle of teaching is one of the foremost and basic method for teaching a child. There are lots of teachers who follow different kinds of methods. But what I think, if we go accordingly, psychological principle of education for the child, we find that there are lots of psychologists who give their own ideas on the principles. Now, if we go accordingly to the psychological principle of teaching, we find it there are more than 10 or 11 points. But basically, what I think myself is these 5 points, which is the foremost thing which everyone should know about. In which I'll go one by one to everyone. Firstly, I would just like to read it out, all the steps given here. The first point which I would like to explain you is from the principle of motivation, and then the second one is principle of exercise, the third is principle of attention, and the fourth one is the principle of tolerance, cooperation and praise, and the lastly we go to the law of effect. Now, let me start with the first topic to all of you, principle of motivation. Well, everyone is a teacher, everyone knows how to teach in a class, but then the most important thing is that while we enter into the class, the first thing what the teacher should do is we have to follow this principle of motivation. Because until and unless we motivate to the students, I don't think they will concentrate in their studies. The foremost thing to make child understand is to first motivate them. Because if we motivate, half of the tasks of the teachers are covered at that moment. It becomes easier for the teacher. It becomes easier for the teacher to teach. Because once the students or the child is motivated, you find it easier to teach them. You find them, make them understand very fast. And the other thing is that if the child is not motivated, it will take you a long process. It will take you a long time to make them understand. If suppose for example you are taking a single topic, okay? And if the child is not motivated, you will find out, if suppose in a class there are 40 students and you are trying to explain a topic, you will find like out of 40 students, around 30 students are very much concentrated in what you are speaking. But the rest 10%, you will find them, they are moving around, they are talking each other, they are chatting each other, and then they are disturbing to the other students. So in order to make your teaching more effective, in order to make the student more concentrate towards yourself, the first thing what you have to follow is the principle of motivation. Just try to motivate the students in your own way. It's not that there is a particular rules or regulation for motivating the students. It's all up to you. You go to your class and you try to express your own idea how you can motivate the students. So the first thing which I told you is the principle of motivation, that is much more important, and as per the psychologist, most of the psychologists have explained in different ways, but then the most easier way is that we should follow the principle of motivation. This was the first point which I explained you, and then next I'm going to the principle of exercise. Just a motivation is not enough. Principle of exercise, the second point, which says exercise, it doesn't mean that physical exercise. Whenever we talk about the exercise, it comes to our mind that doing that physical exercise, doing push-up, running in the morning, doing our morning walk, that's not the exercise. So over here in the class, when we're talking about the exercise, principle of exercise, it means practice. You ask the student to practice. Because until and unless the student or the child they practice, they are not going to learn much. Only the theoretical is not enough. If suppose we are talking about the health or hygiene, we are teaching in the class health and hygiene. Okay? So theoretically, most of the students they understand. At that moment they understand. Okay, what sir is teaching about the health or hygiene? That we should drink the water in a proper manner. Okay? When we are drinking water, we should not take up the bottle and then pour from the top. Okay? We should place it in a glass, or we take a bottle and place it in the mouth and then we drink. That is the best way. But then we teach that don't ever pour your water from the top, so that if you pour it from the top, it may affect you. It may affect your heart, it may affect your lungs. That is the difference. But then we say at that moment, the class, the child sat and they will listen to you, they will understand the point, once they left the school, they'll go home, they'll forget everything. So the most important thing is when we're talking about health or education or hygiene education, we should make them practice that. Okay? When they are drinking water in the class, we'll just call one of the students here, we'll ask them, okay, let's see how he drinks the water. Let him drink water here with a bottle and show them also that see how this child is drinking in the same manner you all will drink. This is a simple example which I would like to say you for the health or hygiene. There are many examples which you can express for the principle of exercise. So the important thing which I want to explain in this point is that principle of exercise refers to the practice of the students. Whatever you're teaching, you ask them to do that in practice. That's it. Okay, so this was the second point. Now we'll shift it to the third point, that is principle of attention. Now, this is another important point which I would like to express. Principle of attention. Because principle of attention refers to that until you bring interest in the students or until you bring interest to the child, they will not be attentive. In order to make your class more effective, you have to bring the child's attention towards you. And that is not very much tough for all of us. For example, I would like to say, take our literature. Okay, we are taking a literature class, maybe we are taking a history, I'm teaching history. Okay, for the students. So what happens? For example, we go to the classes, we take about Hitler, we talk about Hitler. Okay, now as you know, Adolf Hitler, who was he? You know that. Now, Adolf Hitler will take up is that after the First World War, Adolf Hitler took up Germany and then he became a dictator, God and death. Okay, but then once we start teaching to the child about Adolf Hitler that he became a dictator in Germany, the foremost thing is when we start directly, we just go to the class and we start directly what is the history about Adolf Hitler. But then the most important thing is the student, when we start teaching history, firstly they will listen what is a history period. They become bored. They started looking up their faces. What subject is it? It is history. It becomes bored. They started talking themselves. They started laughing when the teacher is inside. The teacher comes and started teaching history. That is not the way. You have to bring the attention of the student. How you bring it? When we are talking about Adolf Hitler, it is Germany. You tell the student, okay students, I am going to say you firstly, what is Hitler's life story? And that is very much interesting because he was one of the best warrior we can see. So when the student listen about war or about fighting, you know most of the students are very much interested in fighting, so wars or whatever like thriller or suspense, this type of things they are very much interested. So once we start with Adolf Hitler, we'll say that I'm going to tell you the life story about this. What is the life story? The simple thing is that when Adolf Hitler was small, he was very curious in study. When he grown up, his idea was to be an artist. He was to be an artist. The student will think, if he was supposed to be an artist, how did he become an artist? Okay, the question will arise then. The student will ask me, sir, this man is a warrior. He is a soldier. How can you say that he was about to be an artist? Well, then I will explain because we are creating an interest in the child. So at that moment we'll say no. Hitler actually by studying he wants to be an artist, but then something happened in his life. Suddenly he had to turn off his mind and then he went to the army line and then he joined as a messenger. And messenger, you know what is messenger? When an army start giving message when there is a war, he goes from one place to another in a very dangerous position and then say. So these are the things which we try to explain about Hitler's background. Then you just see all the students are very much interested in knowing what happened in the next. So that is what then we try to bring them and attend it. And you will find each and every student who is very much attentive to you. You will not find even a single student who is looking outside or here or there because they are very much interested in. Now let's see what happened to Hitler. He wants to know about it. So that is the thing. So I would like to refer that principle of attention is another important topic which each and every student has to follow about. Okay. Now we'll move into the fourth point, that is principle of tolerance, cooperation and praise. This is another important topic. Why? I want to say you, once you are teaching in the class to the child, only teaching is not enough. When you are giving your full dedication in study, the other thing is you need to be tolerant. Sometimes it happens that when you ask question to the student, they give a wrong reply. It doesn't mean that you just go and give him a slap. That's not the way. You have to tolerate what he is speaking. Even if he is giving you a wrong answer, you just try to appreciate him. Okay, he has tried very well. You know that he has given a wrong answer, but then you can show to the other students as an example that he has at least tried. There are few students who are sitting behind, they are not giving any answer. So this is the best way. See, he has at least stand up and given. So that is comes what? That comes under praise. When you are praising anyone, he becomes more active in the class. He thinks, okay, I have given wrong answer, even though he is appreciating me. Next day he will try the more best. Next day he will try more best. There are other students who are sitting behind. They will try that if he is a, what we say in Hindi, the go-to student. If he can give an answer, why not me? The other student knows. So that is the thing. Tolerance and praise is connected each other. Just try to connect it. Okay? Tolerance and praise is the very important thing. Once you tolerate what the student is saying, you just praise them at that moment. Don't give them a slap. Don't react yourself. Okay? With the student. So that's why I would like to say the principle of tolerance, cooperation, and praise is very much important. But once you tolerate, that means you are cooperating. And until and unless you cooperate or you tolerate, you cannot handle the class. Okay? So the important thing is to handle the classroom, you have to have this thing in your mind. You have to follow this. Okay? And last, that is the much important thing as per my ideas along with the psychologist. Okay? And what is that? The law of effect. I would like to explain you what is law of effect. Okay? Now, law of effect means satisfaction. Whatever you are teaching in the class, you have to see whether the students are satisfied what you are teaching or not. Because the child only learns when they are satisfied. If they are not satisfied, that means your teaching is not enough. If they are not satisfied, you think that you are still lagging behind. If you want to come foremost, if you want your students, your classroom to develop, then other classes, then the most important thing is you have to follow this, the law of effect. That means you have to make the student satisfied. Because satisfaction gives you the law of effect.